Rahim. I'm happy that one more time I have the opportunity to be with the dear brother and sisters of the Ahlul Bayt Islamic Society of New England, ZERC MIT Shia Muslim Association. As Dr. Masalai said, the last few lectures we discussed Lady Malika, mother of Imam Mahdi alayhi salam. The hadith is related to her. Today I will continue partially that, do some brief explanation basically on the question actually asked by Dr. Masaleh himself at the end of the last lecture. And then we have something left, which I didn't add to the title, about the lineage of Lady Malika, which in the hadith says she's descended of the Simon, which is the Vasi, a successor of Jesus. We have some discussion about that to complete. And then, inshallah, we move to the next bunch of verses, which is on the list of our discussion. So, as usual in these series of lectures, I will start with these for blessing. These two verses of Quran from Surah 66 is أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ضرب الله مثلا للذين آمنوا امرأة فرعون إذ قالت رب ابن لي عندك بيتا في الجنة ونجني من فرعون وعمله ونجني من قوم الظالمين مريم ابنة عمران التي أحسنت فرجها فنفخنا فيها من روحنا وصدقت بكلمات ربها وكتبه وكانت من القانتين. God cites an example for the faithful, the wife of Pharaoh, when she said, My Lord, build me a home near you in paradise and deliver me from Pharaoh and his conduct and deliver me from the wrongdoing lot. And Mary, daughter of Imran, who guarded the chastity of her womb, so we breathed into it of our spirit. She confirmed the words of her Lord and his books, and she was one of the obedient. And we said these verses are the reason, motivation for this series of lecture, because mentioning Mary and the wife of Pharaoh as role model for all believers, not just the women. And then we discussed different topics like Annunciation, birth of Jesus, and this even surrounding it. These are the list of the verses which in Quran has come and about Hazrat Maryam. They are listed chronologically. The green ones are Meccan ones, and the pink ones are the Medina ones. The two main surah which discussion happened in Surah Maryam 19 and Surah Al Imran 3. We are kind of the list we discuss. The verses are these verses. We have finished discussing verse 42, 43, Surah Al Imran. These are the verses left which to discuss, and except 66, 11, 12, which is the one I usually recite. And then you will see these verses, especially the one in Surah An-Nisa and the verses Surah Al-Ma'idah, are related more than the history or life of Mary and Jesus, about their nature and how the Christians understood them or misunderstood them, and what the Quran, the issue of Trinity, divinity, worship of them. So that's we are going to discuss, but the main focus really, which is the main part, with the verses 116 to 118 of Surah Ma'idah, and these will be set around these three verses. So essentially, the main verse really is the verse 116 from Surah 5, Surah Ma'idah. As I said, there were five main topic or new topic or different topic we emphasize in the series of lectures. We want to answer them, besides discussing the verses of Quran, commenting on them. One was the family of Imran, which consists of which people? Is it just Imran, his wife, and Mary, their daughter, and the son of Mary, Jesus, only four people? Or is more extended? And to be extended, this assumes that Mary maybe have other children, as the letter of Bible suggests. And then some historical records mention some people a brother of Jesus, and then they have children too. So that's, we kind of pushing that direction, that this family of Imran is extended, including them, and these are very pious, important people. The true Christianity was preserving them. The one we discussed thoroughly with James, the Just, which we know more about him. We should discuss the sister of Aaron completely. The fate of true Christianity, as I said, is connected to James and the Jewish Christians or Ebionites, or this branch of family of Jesus, which is the leader of the church, especially in Jerusalem and Palestine. All of these requires we have some discussion of Joseph the Carpenter, whether there was a Joseph Carpenter. Carpenter was a relation with Mary. Was he the father of those other brother of Jesus? Besides Jesus, or what was the situation, which we went through that too. The one we were discussing in the last few lectures, based on the hadith, which which I have to discuss a little bit more about it, was okay. Nargis Khatoon or Lady Malika, the mother of Imam Mahdi, was understood to be a Byzantine princess, which based on a dream and sold herself or go to the front, be captured the front of the war between Muslim army and Byzantine army, captured, taken to the slave market in Baghdad, was purchased, took to Samarra, to the 10th Imam, married the 11th Imam, Imam Hassan Askari, and Imam Mahdi was born from her. A part of that hadith which tell all this story she mentions twice. She mentions her grandfather is Malik Qaisar Malik Bizan Rum, that we discussed. That's the historical validity. We identify who must that person be, her grandfather, Caesar Bardas, but that is her father's side. Her mother's side, she said she is descended from lineage of Simon, which was a wasi of Hazrat Masih. Okay, most people, as we said, understood that Simon must be Simon the Cephas, Simon the Peter, one of the companions of Jesus, very prominent in Christianity. But my conjecture was this Simon Cephas is not the real Wasi. And the real Wasi of the historical record said is another Simon, Simon the Clophas, Simon, maybe know that not with the Simon Cleopas, a brother of Jesus. Now, there is a problem when maybe I go forward, then I'll discuss it. So this is I have to discuss a little bit more who's the Simon Clophas is, Simon the Cephas is, and a little bit this part, but we have to say this is not as fundamental, it's not as Quran based on a hadith and part of an hadith. And then but I thought it would be interesting if this is true. Because I said a few times, we said before that Simon the Cephas was a fisherman living in Galilee, wasn't a special lineage. We don't have any record people keeping the lineage. And if that's the true, it must be about 800 years people keep the lineage. If the understanding of people that Simon is Simon the Cephas, which I don't believe it is, people should have kept his lineage for 800 years. We don't have any record. But the brothers of Jesus, people kept record, and the family of Jesus, Joseph Carpenter and Mary, are important for the Jewish tradition too, because they were the lineage of David. So that's a royal lineage. That's a lineage which, according to belief, should rule the Jews or rule the governments they have. And then the other thing we saw also that Mary was descendant from Aaron too. So my claim was the mother of Imam Mahdi, Nargis Khatoon, was the descendant of Mary herself through this other son of Mary, not Jesus. So that lineage will be established for Imam Mahdi too. And that the two, we said priestly Messiah and royal Messiah, which the Jews were anticipating in the first century. We saw it in Dead Sea Scrolls mentioned. All lineage-wise would fit with Hazrat Mahdi too. Hazrat Mahdi would be descended from Prophet Muhammad, descended from Aaron, descended from David. Okay, we have to come back to this a little bit more. But as I said, we discussed about the story of Malika and Nargis Khatoon last time. The hadith was coming from the Sheikh al-Saduq book, Kamal ad-Din wa Tamam al-Ni'mah. And then we looked to the Arabic part, the starting part. I just put it if you needed to come back. Now, what we didn't do, we went to read the hadith, was long. It take maybe 40 more than 40 minutes to read it. 6 pages. And then, well, we didn't look to the chain of the documentation. That's not. Our goal was mostly to argue or say part of these hadiths, although long, although some part of it hagiographical, maybe miraculous, has historical validity. A very interesting historical validity. So kind of arguing for the maybe truth of the hadith based on its content. But traditionally hadiths are actually, some people go to the other extreme, mostly look to the documentation that occurred about content. If they think documentation is correct, that's correct. But the reality is the mix. Documentations could be forged, and correct documentation that doesn't necessarily mean content of hadith is correct, and vice versa. If maybe the hadith is correct but doesn't have good documentation, or some problem in the chain recording it, because they were not used to do it, especially in Sunni tradition and Shia also later on. So and then one other thing, okay, so we have to look to that. But look, there are techniques. People work with the documentation or content or so on. There are many different techniques, but a class of hadith which always made a problem is the one they call it hadith wahid, khabar wahid, which is only one chain, one group, one person has narrated, and every other recording is from that first one. I mean, this is an example of it. We have it in the book of Sheikh Saduq, and Sheikh Tusi has it, and another Tabari, which we call it Shi'i Tabari, not the famous historian, also narrated, and then later on you see Bahar is narrated. But all of them are really essentially from this version from Sheikh Saduq. So you can get one news, one source, and you can multiply, publish it, especially nowadays. But the preference is, and the good reporters, for example, in good journalism, they must have two at least sources, different independent sources collaborate. And then this Khabar Wahid was a big problem from the beginning from early. How do you have to handle it? There are radical different ways how to handle them. Some people like Said Murtaza brother, Said Razi, the compiler of Nahj Balagha. Said Murtaza is more important history of Shiism than Sayyid Razi, totally wants to put them aside because there are some strange hadiths among these, and vice versa. And then, okay, it's complicated. This one is among them. This one is among them. Many of the techniques cannot work, and you need to trust. But he has a chain, this one, because sometimes even they don't have a chain, or chain is vague. The chain, I checked with people. Look, this blue part is the chain of narrators, the documentation, the sanad. So that you can work on the text, which we were doing that, Matt's. That was last lecture, but because Dr. Masali had a question, I want to look to sanad. Look, you see, the sanad says Muhammad ibn Ali ibn Hatib ibn Nawfali narrated to us. This is a person Saduq get it from it. And then when they say narrated, you have to look, this is not they doing it orally. The tradition at that time assumes these guys have books and writing. They have books, and they learn the books from the teacher, and the teacher is the other one in the chain. And then that's usually the case. So to check whether hadith is true, they have to check the guy existed, whether the guy is known to have books, whether the guy can see or was a teacher of the other person, whether there are other people have narrated from the same teacher, whether this chain of narration is seen in different hadiths. Because if I study with some teacher, I don't just learn one hadith from him. And then so there are chains of narrations which are repeated because these guys have studied from each other and narrated more. But so some part of this chain is known, but I have to say is not completely without question the chain. Chain is not bad, but it's not that perfect too. So we have first person Muhammad ibn Hatam al-Nufili to reach the Sheikh Saduq. So the one we have recorded Sheikh Saduq. Then Abu al-Abbas Ahmad ibn Isal al-Washa al-Baghdadi, he's famous. I didn't find to do the research all because you need to first one by one, and I'm not sure anybody has done. I didn't Yeah, we could search some Persian articles too, but I would tell you what is the important part, what is the challenging part, but still is work to be done. Uh, that finding these guys, finding their life, finding whether this chain has been used in other hadiths. Uh, and then you see, so besides Sheikh Sadaf, this is the first one, this is the second one. Ahmad ibn Tahir al-Qumi is from Qom, is Ash'ari, from Qom, famous. But the clue is this guy, because the story is narrated from him. That is, he, as remember, said, I first go to Ziyara to Karbala, then we'll go to the Qazimin, I saw an old man. It was 286 after Hijrah, and that old man first didn't trust me, then it checked me, and then he noticed I have hadiths from, narrating hadiths from Imams, trusted me and tell me the story, and because is this. So you remember the main story was narrated from Bashir ibn Sulaiman and he himself from Nargis or Khadija Khatoon. Bashir ibn Sulaiman was known, he was a slave trader, descendant of Abu Ansari, companion or neighbor of 10 till 11 Imam Samir. But the whole main part is this guy for now, at least understanding is this. Abu Hussein Muhammad ibn Bahr al-Shaybani. Uh, and what we know about, because he's narrating, he maybe embellished, at least apparently is coming from him. But it could be change happened after him, or it could be people added layer to it. Or so, but what we know about him, there's a books called Rejal, which exactly record these peoples, which are narrator of hadith, list them all, where they live, who was their teacher, who was their student, what books they have, uh, whether they're trustworthy or change their religion. But those books of Rijal also somehow they're like indexes, very concise. So I went to this Rijal in Najashi. I was looking, it's a little bit, because we don't have time to go through it, and I asked some people which are doing well, they said we haven't worked on it in detail, but they give me some ideas. Look, this one, the important guy was Muhammad ibn Bah. There is Ar-Rahni is in name, which wasn't here. But it just happens very often. The names are not said. So his Abu Hussein is kunya. His name is Muhammad ibn Bah al-Shaybani. Shaybani is an Arab tribe, one of the actually first tribe uh, involved in Iran's invasion. But doesn't matter. But Muhammad ibn al-Rahni's name, Abu Hussein Shaybani, and then he says he was resident somewhere in Kerman. Shaybani claims he's not Iranian, but I haven't checked. As Arab living in Kerman, but he could be sometimes Iranian joined the tribe as Mawali, but I'm more thinking he's not Iranian Arab. But because some of the Arab tribes and Shaybani is one of the one entering Iran, so settled in Kerman. And then Najashi says, "غالب از أصحابنا," some of our friends are companions, the business of this field, scholars, co-workers, or what's the name? Peers, yeah, here the peers. إنه كان في مذهبه ارتفاع. That means he has some sign of exaggeration, and especially when he said مذهبي, he maybe have some tendencies to ghulat, which they were actually powerful, and for a while they going back and forth. And then remember the Nusayris in Syria. The founder was first a true Shia, true companion of 10th Imam and 11th Imam, but then got this exaggerated views and then separated from Shiism. But Irtifad doesn't say he's that off, because sometimes, I mean, the reading is not like that. Some people talk to me, they said he was embellishing the stories, and then you see a little bit make it nicer. But was it he with the people? But then it says, despite this, hadithu qarib bin salama. But they say, okay, despite he maybe get tendencies like we have today. Some people are. I mean, we have it going was a big deal in the time of Sheikh Saduq that some people with Muqatta, they accuse each other. Uh, some people say you don't understand imams or give them uh, the, the the authority and power they deserve. Some people say you're exaggerating. مففزه مخطئ. They sometimes, these I don't want to go too good. But they say, despite this, his hadiths are trust salamat, safe. Oh. But then Najashi said, "Wala adri man ayna ghilasa." Like, I don't know how they where they do this judgment, how they did of this judgment. But at this, what we know is this: is there were books for him in Kitab al-Bad or Baqa or Taqwa. So he was, and mostly fiqh. And then even to hadith, you see, he was asking some of the fiqh too. Tark al-Mir'ah fi al-Qur'an, Kitab al-Burhan. So he has books. كتاب المتع كتاب القلائد فيها كلام على مسائل الخلاف التي بيننا وبين المخالفين. So there are also some discussion between Shia and Sunni stuff. And then he said قال لنا, we were told by Abu al-Abbas Ahmad ibn Ali ibn Abbas ibn Nu حدثنا محمد ibn Bahr بسائر كتب رباعي. So also he was narrating hadiths from other books too. So he's there. So it's not a fictitious one, because for now this seems he's the real clue. At least he's the one that other people, and then he's maybe some tendencies to all over exaggeration, because it's not clear. Look, right now, if you come say Imams never forget anything. Imams no quantum mechanics, or even you say Imams there's no najasat in Imams. I mean, where are you? Some Shias already say that, or Imams knows every thought of everyone at the same time. I mean, he can know, but whether you read Hadith Ziyarat al-Jami, which one? Is it Quluf or not? But okay, I'm not to downplay it, because I myself see one clue in it when he was talking about that I think Bashir ibn Sulaiman was saying that if this knowledge is the type of knowledge that Salman would have, would be the type of knowledge only Salman had. And I mentioned it, this hadith is famous, that if Abu Zar knew what Salman knew, he would become mushrik or go out of religion. It was too much knowledge that he cannot handle it. And this Salman has a very important role in this Ghulat groups. Is a kind of, is not Trinity, but the quaternity. And the Salman has a role in it. So sometimes when you see that name suddenly pops up in the hadith, you have to be careful. But the thing also you should know, there are layers. I told you, there are years past. Some different narrators are there. Maybe it's not Shaybani, maybe the other guys after that. And then sometimes the name can be skipped. Sometimes they using a copy from another one, which is not, and there was a flux time. So, and also one of the friends, which is very knowledgeable, said this 286 is a little bit early for Shaybani. Shaybani is known. But maybe if he lived long, it could be, because he died at somewhere maybe around 350, and then maybe he was young at this time, which it seems is young. But then the question whether he could go by himself to this pilgrimage. So you see, these type of questions are there. But nowadays we can do it. Individuals, people can do the research. I mean, you need to knowledge. We need a computer. We have to look at it, list it, and go forward. I mean, he was thinking, but if he leaves 80 years old, 80 some years old, I think he fits here. But he must be very young here, 15 to 20 years old, and then living about 60 years after that more. And then, so this meeting with him, with Bashir ibn Sulaiman, was happening with Shaybani was young. Okay, so these are the parts I want to say. I mean, we can go work and then have one full lecture talking about all these documentation. But we saw the hadith, the math has some interesting truth in it. So must be some core truth in it. And then we have seen hadiths. It's not black and white. People add layer to it, especially this long one, narrative one. Okay. There is one challenge for me to look. If I'm claiming Nargis Khatoon Malika is the daughter of Hazrat Maryam, but the hadith itself has a meeting with in a sleep, in a dream, uh, with Hazrat Fatima is present in the dream. Hazrat Maryam is present in the dream, and Malika is seeing the dream. They don't refer to her as my daughter. I mean, if it was true, it was much, much nicer that Hazrat Fatima said, "Okay, I'm requesting this girl, which is your descendant from my son," or so on. They don't refer to her to that. So, if that is the case, I mean, it's the biggest challenge because even previously I haven't read the full detail, or maybe read it a long time ago. I wasn't sure that because they are in the dream. If they were not all three at the same time in a dream, present, and they're referring to her mostly with Wasi of Shamun, would be better. Except saying that some of those layer of the dream was added to the story because there was some parts of it, but that's too much peeking to have to go. And the one other way still I will argue after this, the next, although yeah, half an hour passed, so I have to go faster. Maybe I go 15, 20 minutes. I will argue is that Simon Svasi, I really don't think is Simon the Peter. I think is the other Simon, which we know is Vasi of Jesus. But maybe if the hadith is true, because we have to accept it's true, all of it's true, this saying is true. Uh, maybe she was a descendant of Caesar Bardus, but nothing special from her mother's side that was added. But it's possible that this descendant of Jesus, not descendant of Jesus, Vasi of Jesus, successor of Jesus, is not truly child of Mary. Because remember, we have always that discussion, whether those brother of Jesus are truly half-brother, a step-brother, the children of Joseph from another marriage, but raised in the household Mary was, and Mary was raising them effectively, or even they were cousin. Especially regarding Simon, this was more accepted because, but that's all again is exactly the same type of speculation we may have to do that these Christians have done to the sources. And this issue of Cleophas, Simon the Clophas, has some ambiguity. We know a Simon named Cleophas is the successor to Jesus. That's more certain. But that, what is the relationship? Is it exactly the brother or uncle? We don't know. So this is the part I want to close it. I mean, at least a little bit more through discussion, but we have to go forward. As I said, there are, four names mentioned in the Bible: Mark 63, Matthew 35. They call brothers of Jesus. And if you go to the Greek letter, uh, really, Adolphoi means the same womb. So although maybe his name, sometimes the names are adopted. I could call you, you're like my brother, but doesn't mean you're literally brother. But here, really, every level you discussion historically, they are referred to brothers in flesh. That one of the things which is important, Paul and his group coming and then say, okay, you saw Jesus in flesh, I see Jesus in spirit. And then they say they want to downplay the family role. They say it's not important to be brother of flesh. You must be spiritual brother of Jesus. You are brother of Jesus if you're true follower. Part of it is true, but part of it is downplay. Exactly, we have the same situation in early Islam. Imam Ali was the cousin and then raised like a son in his house of prophet. Uh, but is also the best spiritual one person too. Okay, anyway, these four names are mentioned. We talk about James. James is well known. So I'm saying when James is there, James is successor of Jesus, is so respected. The claim is that Simon is the second successor, is the one they call it Simon Clophas. This Joseph maybe died earlier, we don't know much about, and there is a Judas, which is a book associated to him to the Bible still in the New Testament, and he has descendants, and we know a record of his grandchildren. So that's the one. And then we discussed about James. I'm not going to go to the importance of James. Uh, yeah. I briefly mentioned the martyrdom of James for those who haven't seen it or refreshing the mind or reviewing that is that because the sources are important. So James, as I said, was a very known brother of Jesus, James the Just, and was martyred. And then there is a source, Hegesippus, maybe it's better name, like Hexat, the new Secretary of Defense of the United States, Hegesippus. We so these I read because help me. I'll let you go to the other part. We also have a more detailed account of the death of James from Hegesippus, which is the one also mentions Simon, the second successor of Jesus. A second century, and he's Jewish Christian. Okay, what is this term Jewish Christian means? Is the Jews believe in Jesus, convert to Christianity, but they're following the Jewish law, which is closer to Islam. They have halal and haram, dietary law, the purity laws, washing, and all those stuff. So they don't deny the halakha of Jewish law, following it, contrary to the Gentile or Hellenized Christianity. And then he wrote that, so, and these guys were existent, and we believe the true Christianity was somewhere here, because these are also started branching, but somewhere around these Jewish Christians preserved the true Christianity. And even, I cannot discuss, but the name Nasara, or unused for the Christians, is come from Nazareth, Nazarene, but is referring to this branch of Jewish Christians. So the Quran doesn't call them Christians technically, Masihiyun or Ya Ayyuhal Masihiyun. It called them Ya Ayyuhal Nasara, because a Nasara exactly is an indication to that was an interesting topic in itself. That one of these two Christians, I was thinking why they call them Nasara, it's from Nazarene, and then it's Nazarenes like Shia, like you call Muslims a sub branch of Islam, Shias. Yeah, so a little bit it's mean you consider that these are the true Muslims, okay, or true Christians. Uh, but secondary Jewish Christians who wrote that he, James, was believed by all men to be the most righteous, and thus was called just by all men from Jesus' time to his own. We saw he was martyred about 30 years after Jesus. Hegesippus add other details that may be historically true. And that's interesting. He wrote that James was holy from his mother womb. So look, if you have this maybe gives him birth from Mary. And Mary has another one child besides Jesus. We can anticipate other brothers are there. And like his kinsman John the Baptizer, neither drank wine nor eat meat. Okay, he didn't drink wine. That's interesting too from Islamic perspective, but he didn't eat meat too. Okay, but not eating meat is not haram, but okay, uh, but okay, we are allowed to eat meat and stuff. Or Hegesippus, but also is not recommended to eat too much. Hegesippus also reported that James bore the lineage of a priest, so that we discussed. They have a priestly lineage, constantly prayed in the temple, kneeling so much of the time that his knees grew out like camels. Because this Hegesippus is important. Whatever information we have is true here, much of it. According to Hegesippus, James was continually praying for the forgiveness of the people. Then there is another one. There are three names. Look, Hegesippus, Epiphanius, and Eusebius. So Epiphanius is later. Hegesippus was very close, second century. Maybe he saw even himself uh, the son. I mean, maybe you could see that Simon the Clophas, the second successor of Jesus, at least their children, the family of Jesus. But this guy is fourth century, is okay, longer, farther away. Epiphanius, the fourth century Christian writer, asserted that James, as the descendant of David, also exercised the priesthood on behalf of his community. That I said. Look, that we said that he having dual lineage, becoming royal, kingly, and priestly. And that's I want to kind of, although I'm saying maybe if there was the lineage is correct, will transfer to Isaiah Matthew 2. On behalf of his community, entering the holy areas of the temple where only priests could go, and functioning as a high priest to his followers. That's exactly what we saw discussed many times. We saw that Mary, mother of Jesus, and James represented both Davidic royal family and priestly Aaronic lineage. There is very ancient tradition in the Hebrew Bible that David's sons were priests. Okay, this one, let's ignore it. But this ancient indication may indicate that the followers of James look to him as fulfilling priestly role, represent his community and Nazarenes in the temple, as well royal Davidic one. So Quran call Christians Nazarenes. Look, instead of call Muslims, I call them Ya Ayyuha al-Imamiyun, Ya Ayyuha Asna Ashariyun. And maybe they have to be careful. It's interesting if it's like called I use this term for Muslims, referring to Muslims, and this is doesn't call them Ya Ayyuha Masihiyun. Ahl Kitab is general, but when it's called Nasara, is Nazarene. Exactly, this equal to Nasara in Quran. Both Hegesippus and Epiphanius offer more details about the James they came about, so they know James very well. So we say maybe they know the other brother too. They reported that before James was stoned and he pushed over from the southeast wall of the temple complex, fell into the death valley, barely alive, he was stoned and beaten to death with a club. Okay. But now this is a part. Look, this is one clue. It was important for us. Uh, Epiphanius, the 1/4 century, recorded as Simon, son of Clophas. But this son is not very clear because sometimes it's Simon of Cleopas, sometimes it's written Simon Clophas, and sometimes people understood that means son of Cleopas. Okay, other Simon, son of Cleopas, I agree, is the most natural one. I'll come back to it. But really, you see that sometimes the M is there. For example, say, uh, uh, Hussein Ali, Hussein Ali, Hussein of Ali, Hussein ibn Ali, or Hussein Ali. Okay, if you don't have that one, in Farsi now means one name, but here because Cleophas is a special form, they usually understood son of, but I'm going to tell you something, it could be different. Okay, recorded as Simon, son of Cleophas. This is the guy we were focusing. This is the one I was claiming. Uh, Nargis Khatoon is descended from mother's side. The brother of James and half brother of Jesus was present, and the murderer tried to intervene. So he wants to save his brother. That makes sense to be there, be present, and but they didn't let him. If James D. Tabor correct, Jesus is crucified. Now he says, okay, this one, let's skip it. Now, so this one, following the death of, so the brother was there, or at least the one we call it Simon, son of Cleophas, which is understood to be, many understood this means the half brother of James, half brother of Jesus was there, was present and tried to intervene. Following the death of James, AD 62, Eusebius. Okay, Eusebius is the third person. So you see, we have three names till now. Hegesippus, which is 2nd century Jewish Christian. Epiphanius, another historian, 4th century. And Eusebius, another 4th century. And Eusebius is big because his history of the church, early century, is the important one. That's what we have much thing. Eusebius reported that remaining apostles gathered with those left in the family of the Lord. So they call some apostles, some family of the Lord, and they took counsel together as to whom should succeed James. So they make a council and decide who will be the successor. That's the view is, and then look, the structure is rulership is not very clear, but there are discussions. But it seems there could be a council of elders besides James, which was the leader of the church. There was a council of elders, or maybe that consists of the apostles, the 12, and then some of them have been died or replaced, a replacement. So they were advisory, or maybe like you can say the board of James was CEO, and maybe chairman of the board, but also you have a board and something like that. There are some discussions, and it's a little bit not clear exactly what it is. Look, some of these apostles have been given authority by Jesus during his lifetime. He sent them to mission, and these are interesting. And there is a verse in Surah Al Yasin referring to that. And actually, maybe I put it next lecture because at the early two people go, and then a third come. People don't listen, and then the third one joining them and telling people why you do not listen to them. Every commentator, Islamic commentators say these are actually about apostles of Jesus. It's not about other prophets. So and then the missions, and in Injil, New Testament is 2 by 2. And they sometimes refer there's 70 and they divide them. You have the 12, the closer one, and the 70 is the next group of his followers. And divide them in 2 by 2 and send them to the cities to invite people. But if you read the Testa Bible, they have more powers. They seems they can deal with Satans or jinns. And Quran also somehow mentioning in Surah 61, uh, verse 14, that they are supported by Ruh al-Qudus. Okay, that's a big topic itself, but anyway, so he wrote that they all unanimously decided that Simeon, the son of Clophas. At least these writers now, Simeon is like Simon. Simon, the English version, Simeon is Shamun. And that ain't like Shamun. Like, for example, today the stadium, which the funerals, Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah at the Sayyid Hashim Safieddin was ended, was Kamil Shamun. So Shamun. This Simeon is more Semitic pronunciation of Shamun. Simon is the Greek or English version. Simeon, the son of Cleopas, was worthy of the throne. So for now it's understood this Simeon, the son of Cleopas, is the successor, and is understood to be brother of James and brother of Jesus. But then how Cleopas, not Joseph, or what is going on here? Eusebius noted that this Cleophas mentioned in the Gospel of John was the brother of Joseph, husband of Mary, and thus also Davidic lineage. As James Tiber argued, there is a good evidence that Cleophas, legally the uncle of Jesus, was second husband of Mary, his mother, based on Levirate law. I agree with Tabor. Look, we saw that Joseph the carpenter is not seen much after the birth of Jesus. You don't see it in any of the New Testament during the prophecy and mission or of Jesus. So most probably he has died. It could be he was really older and it was claimed. I don't know exactly how much older, but he was. But for whatever reason he must be died. That is not very clear. There are some ambiguity in all these texts more than what we have in the hadith we're discussing. That Joseph had a brother Cleophas, and now Mary is widowed, and according to the Jewish law, he would be married, that Levirate law, which I have a big, a few slides to explain. We don't need that. Mary had to marry the brother, or could, or marry. So it's possible if really Mary married Joseph the first time, real marriage, it could be after he died also with all these children, kind of the third custodianship happens now with this Cleophas. So it's possible that James and maybe one other child are from Joseph, and then James and Judah, the other two brothers, are from this Cleophas. But this is all a little bit of speculation by the Christian, these researchers there. But let me just read this part. Eusebius wrote in the 4th century AD, but he based his information on the writing Hegesippus, the one we look, taking us back to the 2nd century, much closer to the time of Simon's succession. We can presume Peter was still alive when James died. Now we're talking about the other Simon, Simon the Peter, part of Jesus' inner circle, and having served as a right-hand man to James as one of the pillars of the movement for over 30 years, we might expect that we'd have taken over the leadership of the group if, as the way now Christian understood it, like the situation Omar, for example, Omar, Omar is the biggest companion prophet, which you don't think it was. And then so he must be the leader. That's the way how Peter is looked nowadays. But that the apostle chose Simon showed just how important the Jesus dynasty was in their thinking. That Simon was chosen. Simon was the right brother of James, Simeon, and then so it means really this is the Vasi. And as I said before, Peter didn't have time. Peter was already out of Jerusalem at that time when James died. Peter martyred soon. And it was Simon the Clophas for about 40 years led the church and in a very tumultuous time because Jews did the uprising. Let's see, I can show you to other slide. Okay, this part I don't is about Book of James. I put it aside now. So we have two Simon, and then our argument was that to argue that Malik, if we accept the hadith, if we accept is correct. But as I said, now the hadith content of hadith is more complicated than what was narrated. When you read fully all of it, you see there's some challenges. Is it Nargis Khatoon, the descendant Simon the Peter, Cephas, or Simon the Clophas? Peter, as I said, look, Cephas means rock in Aramaic, and then Peter is in Greek means rock, and the name of the person was Shamun. So Shamun the rock, Shamun as the Cephas, which Arabic or Aramaic pronunciation is Shamun as Safa. Cephas is the Greek pronunciation of the Arabic one. Now, this is, the famous, these two, the Simon was the two brother, Andrew and Peter were among the first to join Jesus, and this is the Lake of Galilee, and these were fishermen, common fishermen, and I guess the drawing, this must be Peter and this must be Andrew. This is a 13th century, 14th century drawing. Look, you look to Peter. I don't have time. Maybe I don't go through the. Peter is complicated, and there are many negative parts about him. So instead of going through all of it, look, I show you the negative ones. My point is that in no way neither he's a good man. He really helped James. We don't have anything negative. He confront Paul. He go to the missionary, but he's the right hand, like you talking Malik Ashtar or Sa'd ibn Ubadah or Ahmad and Abu Bakr. These are good people, or many other the companions. There are many other companions of Imam Ali, Sahl ibn Hunayf, Usman ibn Hunayf. These are good people, but they're not, they do the best. They do sometimes mistake. Imam Ali even rebuke Usman ibn Hunayf. You go to that gathering with the rich people. But okay, they're not flawless, and I don't think they're really the rank of successor of Jesus. Okay, look, these are the points, and then you see some really the editing. So the Jesus rebuke in New Testament 2 times. Jesus called Peter rebukes Satan. Jesus harshly rebukes Peter, calling him Satan when Peter opposes Jesus' prediction of his death. And then actually that sentence which called Peter, you are the rock which I built my church on you, is not in Mark, in Matthew, after around this place which mentioning this harsh criticism, that is added to soften it. So my whole idea is that you see editing here. Okay, lack of faith while walking on water, is you see that we know it's famously Peter denies Jesus. Jesus told him that you will deny, me from night into the morning, and then he does it. So Peter denies knowing Jesus 3 times. At the time Jesus asked him the night last night, be awake and do the prayer, he sleeps. But you can see maybe this is the image the Pauline group have produced, because Pauline group doesn't like the family of Jesus, and even is not very positive of companions, because he was not a companion. He was no authority. He claims some authority as Jesus, so he's a rival authority. We discuss all those stuff. Paul's confrontation, Paul publicly confronted Peter for hypocrisy regarding eating with Gentiles, because they shouldn't eat with unclean, for example, this issue of eating. I oppose. So the image, even New Testament has misunderstanding Jesus' teaching. There is some impulsive violence, because it seems he fight. I mean, we don't know if they're true. Maybe they added to him. He fight when they come to soldiers arrest Jesus. He fight with one of the Roman soldiers and cut his ear. Slow to understand. Jesus expressed frustration with Peter and other disciples for not understanding his teachings. So you see, if you read it, even the positive ones are edited, or that rock one is really added. Look, this is the Satan part, and yeah, look, in Matthew is added, but it's exactly after or before that Jesus calling him Satan. So how it can work? Yeah, here ask. This is the famous one, and they assume this rock means the sea. What I'm saying is not explicit, and there are many problems historically, actually, before, after. Yeah, this is the part that Simon Peter answered, "You are the Messiah, the Son." Jesus asked who I am. You know, uh, who do you say I am? Simon Peter answered, "You're the Messiah, the Son of the living God." Jesus replied, "Blessed are you, Simon, son of Jonah." So Simon and Andrew are descendant of Jonah. His father name was Jonah. For this was not revealed to you by flesh and blood, but by my Father in heaven. He said, okay, whatever you said is not your own thinking. It's somehow you're inspired by Ghoddoussi or God. And I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it. Okay, this maybe is added, or maybe is there, but okay, this is really the the complement that. But we have in hadiths like Ahl Sunnah too regarding Omar. Uh, anyway, I want to go faster. So this I'm saying the character of Peter is complicated, is not so easy. And then we have a researcher, but we have to be also cautious. But this could be true. This Robert Eisenman, he's Jewish. He's the one, the biggest book regarding James, but he's a secular view. So it's good points, but sometimes, okay, the points we have to be careful. But this is what he said, and I kind of agree in some aspects. In the course of this book, it will become clear that James was the true heir and successor of his more famous brother Jesus, and the leader at the time of whatever the movement we now call Christianity, and Nazarene, Nasara, not the more Hellenized character we know through the Greek cognomen Peter, the rock of in any even the Roman Church. So he says the leader of successor is really James, and then after James, that's Simon, not the Simon the Peter. Though Peter's name has now become proverbial, he may not be as historical as we think he is. And now he said even he's not maybe historical. The character is uh, uh, made, combined from different characters, is built up. And the role we attribute to him may possibly be amalgam of that of several individuals with the same name. Yeah, you see, it's contradictory or different names. Individuals with the same name or different name. One, a martyr cousin of both Jesus and James. So he considers Simon the Clophas be cousin. Jesus and James, and the reputed successor in Palestine. So he says the real successor is Simon. Now he put bar means bend in Aramaic or Hebrew. So Simon bar Cleopas. Nor does a normative adherence to Judaism and Christianity appertainable after pursuing study of this kind and grasping the real significance of James in Jerusalem and Islam. So let a little bit see again about the Simon, the brother of Jesus. We have how much time we have. Okay, this is his picture because the Simon, the Clophas, the Simeon, the one he say was the second successor from him, was killed by one of the order of one of the emperors of Rome because they were suspicious because he was the David lineage. They're always worried these Jews revolt, and then they did actually a few years after his martyrdom. So he was, I mean, whether he was crucified or whatever, dead, but this cousin or brother or Wasi of Jesus, besides James, also was martyred. So also was martyred. Uh, yeah, the point is this. Now, many of these Christian thinkers have made it complicated, but we have gone through this one more time. Look, we have Mary and Jesus and Joseph. Now, whether then we know Bible talk about four brother and two sister at least for Jesus. Now, whether then these are children of Joseph, Mary, okay, most some people accept that this become half brother, and then whether this Simon is the successor, or some people have assumed Simon a cousin. It could be to Simon. I mean, this makes more similar to, yeah, anyway. So they say, look, Joseph had a brother got Cleophas. So Joseph and Mary, or Joseph, again, these guys believe these all are really children of Mary. So these are half brothers or sisters of James, Jesus. And then one of the descendant of Jude we know was Bishop. So it was like Ayatollah, a high-ranking clergy in about 148, 149, 110 years after the death of Jesus or raising to heaven. So this lineage was known and people know, like in our books, for example, talking about different Sadats. But these groups, some think this Simeon, which is successor of James, is not this Simon, but is another person. There is also a possibility because the age of Simon, if they're really children of Joseph, then he has to become very old because, I mean, it's still possible. Maybe when he was very young when Jesus died. It's possible because Jesus died at 30. This 106 is martyred. So we're talking 76 years old. So even he was 10 or 12 or let's say adult, maybe at the time Jesus was dead, he can't be here. But they assume maybe some say Joseph has a brother Cleophas. It's possible Mary Cleophas, which is Tabor thinks, and then Simeon is the children of Mary, the Cleophas. But then some of these sources talking about another Mary, which is possible, but also they say some Mary is a sister of this Mary, which is impossible. So, okay. So in one says this Simeon, either is this Simon a real half-brother of Jesus and the second successor, and then the one I was saying, Malika was descendant, or really a cousin. And then you have other versions we have that they think all these children are Joseph's from earlier wife. Then these are not half brothers, step brothers, but then okay, that's a possibility. But then they don't have any lineage to marry. If Maliki Khatoon is descendant of this Simon, then okay, it's possible. That match actually match better, but the dream doesn't say my daughter, as is Maryam, but twice say the daughter of Messiah of Jesus. I say Simon the Peter is not in any form Messiah of Jesus. And then this James, it is, that's no doubt. And there is a Simon, which is descendant of the successor of this one, which most probably is the brother. That's okay, the model which actually many Catholics matches to. And then there's the other one which we talked about, which was very complicated one. And then from the beginning, all these four are the cousins, not half brothers or step brothers, which we discussed, and then the Orco Joachim and all. But this time, this is I don't agree with. They make the two Marys, and then they make the connection not to Joseph and Cleophas between two Marys. Honestly, this part of it I don't agree, but I think is anyway. So you see, some of it is not so easy, and then we have another model. Yeah, this model which make two sister and both of them Mary is hard to believe. But this model, which is more typical, which we said it before, that the connection is the two brothers. The two brothers may be married to Mary, but the Marys are not related. And these four are really cousins. Previously only one Simeon was the cousin of Cleophas. Here, all cousins and either stepbrother have, which again match the dream more. Actually, the extreme version, which I want to make these Simon child of Mary and then Maliki Khatun descendant of Mary, for now doesn't match the apparent version of the dream. But these other ones match. So maybe Maliki Khatun is descendant of the Simon, half brother of Jesus or step brother of Jesus. Not half brother. Half brother means descendant of Mary. A step brother or cousin. Okay, I hope I haven't lost you in it, but it's the one. And then, so if you're summarizing it, according to early Christian tradition, some historical sources, his father Cleophas, also called Cleophas and Alphaeus, who, according to some tradition, was the brother of Joseph, making Simon Jesus' cousin. Now, one other thing about the Cleophas, I say, this Cleophas it seems, has the roots. This is because the Greek version of pronouncing Aramic word. These have roots with Khalifa, Caliphus, something like that. If that's the case, maybe Simon Cleophas doesn't mean Simon of Cleophas, Simon son of Cleophas. It means Simon the Caliph, Simon the successor. And I think this probable. So this Cleophas thing is a whole something extra they understood. And it's possible when they're referring to Simon, they want to distinguish it. Who are you referring to? Which Shamun? Simon the successor, not Simon the son of successor or Simon of the successor. No, Simon the successor. That's also a possibility, but really Christians have that's a possibility. So let's go forward. According to Eusebius, citing earlier writer, Eusebius was chosen as a bishop because he was a cousin of Jesus, Davidic line. So Eusebius calls to cousin. So we have to go mostly this form of the thing or this form that uh, this Simon is different from this Simon. There are two Simons in the family. One is brother, one is cousin. And Hegesippus, Eusebius claimed that Simon was martyred during the reign of Trajan around 788. This is a Roman emperor. At his time. Rome gets his biggest uh, expansion. The biggest a peak of its size at the very advanced age of 120. Yeah, this is a problem. This 120, I think they made it up to fix it. We have in Islamic hadiths too, Jabir or some of the Malik ibn Anas or yeah, Anas ibn Malik makes it odd. I'm guessing maybe it could be the cousin, this form. Maybe these two are different and this is the successor and the same family, the same surrounding, but it's not that old. Okay, let's go faster. And the tradition state he was crucified after being denounced as Christian descendant of David. So I think I said we know he was chosen as successor. We know he was martyred as 107, 108, 40 years after the death of James, about 70 years after Jesus. He was descendant of David, but exactly whether it was a step brother, half brother, or cousin of Jesus, we don't know. But it's not Simon the Peter, Simon the company. Okay, the other issues I kind of skip. So we come to the new topic we want to discuss. I set the stage today, the next half hour we have. Then I will expand it next time. Maybe just don't read the verses again. But today, because I want to set the stage, we read the verses. So there are series of verses in Surah Isa and Surah to Ma'idah, a little bit long. I will read them, the English translation. We got the idea what they are, and then I see what the problem is, depending on how much time we have. Okay, look, one of the first verse is 156, is God is talking about the Jews. We can read from 155. And this is about the Jews. And Surah An-Nisa, which is Madani, and after Al Imran. And the one thing I have to say, we have the discussions about the structure of Quran. Some of the surahs of Quran are sisters, they are pairs. Surah Al-Baqarah or Surah Al Imran are very 2 and 3 are very similar. They're sisters. The same Surah 4 and 5. They're both Madani. They are both about laws. One is hunting, dietary law. One is many laws related to marriage, women, stuff like that, and dealing with the people of the book. Other 3 and 2 do, 4 and 5 do, but they differently. So you see, all these verses we discussed for 4 and 5, more or less the same period, we'll say more or less into 2 surahs, which are sisters. So have this in mind. Okay. And for their faith, this is regarding Jews, and for their faithlessness and their uttering a monstrous calumny against Mary. So this accusation against Mary, which remember we saw it again when the issue of the Harun, and they were claiming that the child wasn't born out of miracle, Jesus wasn't born out of miracle, and so on. And then you see these ideas we're not discussing. This is a very important verse in the Quran, the whole debate with Christianity. But I want you to know which context this is mentioned. And the verse 156 is related to Mary. But 157, and for the saying we killed the Messiah, Jesus, son of Mary, the apostle of God, though they did not kill him, nor they did crucify him, but so it was made to appear to them. Indeed, those who differ concerning him are surely in doubt about him. They do not have any knowledge of that beyond following conjectures, and certainly did not kill him. So Quran emphasizes ma qataluhu yaqinan. But then this is a whole debate what is about. Indeed, God raised him up toward himself, and God is almighty, all wise. Because we don't talk about Jesus' divinity, just I read this. There is none among people of the book, but will sure believe in him before his death. On the day of resurrection, he will be a witness against them. That him is not very clear. Most people understood about Jesus, but that's make the verse a little bit strange. Is it Prophet Muhammad? But again, this is another commentary story by itself. But really, we need 156. So I go forward. Then 171 and 2 are more related to what our discussion will be, this is Surah An-Nisa again. O people of the book, do not exceed the bounds in your religion. Do not attribute anything to God except the truth. The Messiah, Jesus, son of Mary, was only an apostle of God, and his word that he cast toward Mary and the spirit from him. So again, regarding uh, uh, Mary, Annunciation, and then we had long discussion, Annunciation, conception, and in lectures 3 and 4. So have faith in God and his apostles, and do not say God is a Trinity. Relinquish such a creed. That is better for you. God is but the one God. He's far too immaculate to have any son. To him belongs whatever is in the heavens and whatever is on earth. God suffices as trustee. The Messiah would never disdain being a servant of God, nor would the angels brought near to him. And whoever disdains his worship and is arrogant, he will gather them all toward him. So this is one verse, and then so now from here, again, you see what's the topic is. From here, uh we move to Surah Al-Ma'idah, and then these are 116, as I said, is the most important verse, but we have some verses here is important too. There are certainly faithless who say God is the Messiah, son of Mary. But the Messiah had said, O children of Israel, worship God, my Lord and your Lord. This may be some intertextuality with some verses in New Testament. We will see it maybe later on in the Gospel of John, maybe next lecture. Indeed, whoever ascribes partners to God, God shall forbid him entry into the paradise, and his refuse shall be the fire, and wrongdoers will not have any helpers. There are certainly faithless who say God is the third person of the Trinity, but there is no God except the one God. If they do not relinquish what they say, there shall befall the faithless among them a painful punishment. You see, again, these are all about uh, the nature of Jesus or Mary and divinity or worship and Trinity, because again, we're not talking about Mary, Trinity. We're not going to discuss this fully. But look, the continuation of the verse is this. Will they not repent to God and plead to him for forgiveness? Yet God is all forgiving, all merciful. The Messiah, son of Mary, is but an apostle. Certainly, other apostles have, well, prophet here, maybe, because it used the word Rasul, messenger. Certainly, apostles have passed before him, and his mother was a truthful one. Again, about Mary, truthful one. So, truthful one maybe is regarding that accusation, the same. Uh, we just see the Jews accusing her. So in this sense, is a truthful one, and we saw that Jesus also kind of indicated her. So his mother was a truthful when talking in the cradle. Jesus supported her mother. Both of them would eat food. Look how we clarify the signs for them. So this is important verse for our discussion. That Quran is trying to is arguing very simple argument for the Christians. Look, these two eat food. So how you can consider divine or how to worship them? Look how we clarify the signs for them, and yet look how they go astray. Say, do you worship besides God what has no power to bring you and any benefit or harm, while God is all hearing, the all knowing? Uh, and when and then no, these are the real parts which we are looking. This verse 116 is the main topic. And when God will say, so when God will say is in future. Although if you look, the verb is past tense, is قال الله, and God said, but the the Arabic verse time tenses are not clear. But then you see, actually, this is a very interesting feature of Quran. You are in very, very, very future. You're looking back, and this back is much future to us. So, for example, you're 10,000 years from now and looking to 8,000 years from now. So this is the scene we are reading is happening hereafter. This dialogue happens in hereafter. And then so after all resurrection. So, and then when God says to Jesus, son of Mary, because of the verse 119, 120, this is clear. And when God will say, oh Jesus, son of Mary, was it you who said to the people, take me and my mother for gods besides God? Or besides Allah. He will say, immaculate are you. It does not behoove me to say what I have no right to say. Had I said it, you would certainly have known it. You know whatever is myself, and I do not know what is in yourself. So kind of distinguishing Jesus from God, no unity, or I don't know, three natures or so on. God, Father, had. I mean, this is again all rejection of Trinity. Indeed, you are knower of all that is unseen. I did not say to them anything except what you had commanded me to say, worship God, my Lord and your Lord. And I was a witness to them so long as I was among them. But when you had taken me away, you yourself were watchful over them, and you are witness to all things. If you are, so then the next verse says, if you are knower of all that unseen, uh, okay, we read this. If you punish them, so we have to read, I read to the end of 117, we have to read. If you punish them, they are indeed your creatures, but if you forgive them, you are indeed the Almighty, the All-Wise. Then this is the one that shows this is in Qiyamah. All Allah will say this day is hereafter. Allah will say this day, truthfulness shall benefit the truthful. For them there will be gardens with streams running in them to remain in them forever. God is pleased with them and they are pleased with him. That is the great success. To Allah belongs the kingdom of the heavens and the earth, and whatever there is in them, he has power over all things. So what is the problem? The problem is this part. As قال الله يا عيسى ابن مريم أأنت قلت للناس اتخذوني وأمي إلهين. Did you tell people to choose me and my mother uh, to, here the translation is uh, gods besides Allah? Okay. Uh, as a polemic, and from early time, the Christians start to say, not that early time, and Muslims were searching too, that the argument was that Christians would say, no, Quran is not mistake here. Why Quran is not mistake here? Because we do not worship Mary. Mary is not part of Trinity. Or this, for example, Reynolds says a Quran may be mistaken Trinity, and Trinity is God and the Holy Spirit and Jesus, not God and Mary and Jesus. Okay, and 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 so Quran is wrong, or Quran is not accurate. Quran isn't Christianity. We don't know. We don't worship Mary, and Christian says, yeah, we don't worship Mary. Who says we worship Mary? But they do say worship Jesus. I mean, this Gabriel Saint Reynolds, the professor of Notre Dame, said when they told him about the role model, so no, I don't want to Jesus be my role model. I want to worship Jesus. Jesus is not my role model. But then the God in Mary said, no, it's not the case. We don't worship Mary. And I mean, to how much is this a real problem or self-made problem? Okay, gives us better understanding. And I think here they really play not the first thing. They hide in things which they know very well, but they deny it. But then, in some sense, it seems they don't know the religion or not. So the question is now we are not focusing that worship part of Jesus, not قُلْتَ لِلنَّاسِ اتَّخَذُونِي, but we talk focusing on me. أنت قلت للناس to we look into the part because this is clearly denied, so it's and then look it is not wrong, but Quran the way is asked, some people must have chosen the Ummi, the mother of Jesus, as Allah. And then in some form they have to choose it to this verse be correct, this communication correct, because then doesn't reflect good on God. If I come and ask you, and then something, and then because God knows everything, and Jesus also doesn't deny this has happened, but he said, I didn't say it. So there, kind of the conclusion is there were some people, some part of the Christians, which this part of the Christians uh, chooses Mary as divine or worshiping Mary, and then our Christian says we don't do that. Look, we don't. our Trinity is not including Mary. And then, this becomes more complicated because historically, in many pantheons, we have father, mother, and son. It's more natural to have father, mother, and son. I mean, symbolically, to creative part of nature. The three elements. Many of these pantheon of polytheism, they have a masculine element, feminine element, the child, and then in Christianity, that feminine element is replaced by Ruh al-Qudus, which again, some of the verses regarding how the Jesus conception of Jesus with God blew it, is produce something. So that's we are looking whether it is this what is this, because Muslim scholars from early times have investigated it, and in what sense Quran, because we at least we think this is true. It would in what sense in one sense that some Christians must worship or have been worshiping or are worshiping Mary. Look, the true answer must not be a very small group of Christians doing it. It must be a good large portion, and it mustn't be some obscure group long time ago living in far away in an island. They're extinguished, or at least extinguished in time of prophet, are not important. For example, you say to Shias, you all worship Imam Ali, you choose Imam Ali God. We say, okay, we are not. There are a few groups, very limited, are not part of us, and then they don't exist, or something you accuse, which is a special group sometime have done it. So look, this is a historical search. I mean, there are strategies. I was mostly discussing what we have to understand. Is it literal? So you have two strategy. Yeah, a little bit looking, maybe is worship is not exactly literal, but it must be still be something different, some form close to worship. And is it Quran a little bit uh, uh, telling them what you are doing is like worship, even you don't noticing? Or is really there must be some kind of veneration of Mary, which was really uh, is criticized by the Quran, uh, and it wasn't very limited. It was large scale, and maybe present today. And I think this honesty of some of these polemical discussion with some Christian groups and scholars, even as I said, from ancient times and modern ones, they discuss. I've seen many times, oh, Quran, also, oh, they referring a group, a small minority sect of Christian living in the fringes of Arabia. They had made they worship Mary. They made the dolls of Mary, statues of Mary, and put all of them have to mention. They make some cookies and then they donate the cookies to the statue. So it makes the Quran has put his hand on something very uh limited, unique, fringe. Okay, that wouldn't be right, okay? Especially this discussion happened in the end of times, in that biggest scene of the whole time, and it must be more serious. I mean, it's not covering every human beings because we know all the Ummah are raised with the Prophet. So this is the point. I mean, one other thing, we have 10 minutes. Saleh, how much time we have?
I mean, I don't see any question. We need to
20.
finish right at 10. So
Okay.
maybe another 15 minutes and then,
And we check. Okay, because
or
there is one.
maybe
Yeah,
20 minutes. Again, it's up to you. If
yeah.
you can go just right till 10 and then we finish it there. Yeah.
Yeah, I would, because I forgot one thing I wanted to say from previous topic,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
let me finish this one, then I go back. Look, I usually like to do tafsir, classic one, but unfortunately, uh, I forgot. I had these slides. I forgot. They were Farsi. I couldn't translate them. But usually, I have to translate English to Farsi. This time in reverse. Okay, we want to see this verse 116. Just this one, because this is the core. Everything else around that, everything is about Trinity. Uh, make them somehow semi-divine, something bigger than they should be. But because we're talking about Mary, just as the Maryam, we focus on this. Those are in the context. And one of the other verses, this 72, 73 also mentioned. So our next lecture, I will go through that. But let's go to tafsir of this surah, this verse 116 of chapter 5. Uh, what Tafsir Nur says, I want to say what the Tafsirs were saying. I will show a more systematic one next lecture based on an article, but this is the one if you go open in Tafsir. It says, although most Christians nowadays, they do not consider Mary God, but we can ask that. In one sense, maybe no, but sometimes unconsciously you're attributing something to Mary which belongs to God. But then this commentator said, but some group of them sometime believed that Mary was God. But the problem is that this author doesn't give an example, doesn't mention anything, and this doesn't look well when you're debating those guys. Yeah, and then he asks, yeah, and they would, but again, all of these answers have some correct elements of truth in it. Then he says, maybe they were worshiping in front of his statue. This means like taking him. Because they do pray or do some religious ceremony in front of her statue. Maybe they're praying or worshiping him. Look, one of the features of Christians, especially Catholics, and you go to US, you see more the statue of Mary than Jesus. And many, especially Catholic, Italian, other one, you go the yards back house, they have a statue of Mary more than Jesus, even their homes. And then that's a sign usually they're Catholic or so on. So that's maybe this one is referring to that. But then you have to say, and then this also, whether they really worshiping or just praying in front of that. I know in Islam or tradition, making image, and the Jewish tradition, idolatry, making image of God or some stone or worshiping him is very sensitive. But is it that or what is it? And then this guy says maybe because of they were praying in front of the statue of Mary, this is considered to be considered taking them as Allah. Uh, and then the author says this is a sign of shirk, not denying the God. And then it sees adding, besides God, you're taking Jesus and Mary of object worship, and this considered polytheism shirk. But then the author adds, but the Trinity of the contemporary Christians is Father, Ab, Eb, Ruhul Qudus, Father, Son, and Ruhul Qudus. So it's not Father and Mother, and and Jesus. Father, it's not Ab, Ibn. It's not Father, Mother, Son, but it's Ab, Ibn, Ruhul Qudus. Okay, this is one commentary, and then we go to uh, another commentary, but you see is the same Tafsir al-Namuneh, another one. This one asks the question more explicitly. They have heard some of the challenges, polemic challenges. It asks whether in the history of Christians, at any time we see that they have chosen Mary as the object of worship. I mean, we have to see what form they may have done, but for now, it's going very literal. Or that he itself tafsir Namuna I Makarim and it says or answers or maybe they only considered the Trinity of Father and Son and Holy Spirit. Uh, and then is no doubt in their mind that Ruh al-Qudus, the Holy Spirit, is a connection between God the Father and God the Son, and that Holy Spirit is not Maryam, because then some of those say Quran has mistaken understanding. Again, the same story we have the Ukht Harun started Quran understand wrongly. Quran doesn't know. Quran did a mistake, and then after a while we go through it. We notice they don't know the religion very well. Kind of the story here is this too. Uh, and then we know they don't consider Ruh Qudus to be Mary. But one of the things I always said from the beginning, I've done this twice. I mean, recently, actually, there's an article we see next week by Ghoddoussi next Tuesday. One of the latest work. One of the things could be the Quran was telling them, guys, your system is a problem. is not logical. I mean, if because of Mary's role, you should consider her too. That's one line people understood. It's not Quran is kind of sarcastically, ironically dealt them, okay, this system you built has some problem in it. It must be four. Because Mary is there, the Ruh al-Qudus blew in the Mary, and then Mary has a child. But anyway, let's go this line translating. Answering this question was said, this is the commentator said, it is true that the Christians do not consider Mary as God, but still they, in front of her statue, did their worship, did the ceremony, and the same way that the polytheists of the Hejaz, they don't consider the stones they're worshiping as the real God, but they consider them as a sharik, uh, uh, have a sharing with God in the worship. Actually, that's true that the polytheism in the Hijaz was so sophisticated. They really doesn't consider the stones as the God. It is the place you can communicate with the stone. And actually, the stones in Hijaz were very simple. They were sometimes rectangular. It wasn't the statues of him, like the elaborate statues we saw in other cultures, like Indian or Egyptian culture. It was really at a later stage just a stone, just a location they thought they connected to spirit. But then but if the author says, if I want to say it more clearly, there is a difference between Allah in the meaning of God and Allah meaning of something, object of worship. Christians would look to Mary as object of worship, but they don't consider her as God, which is again some line of answer, but what we say is not that we completely revolutionize, we get some new answer, nobody give it, but then we make all these answers a little more systematic and more depth. One of the commentators says none of the Christians sects groups say they use the word Allah or Ma'bud, divine or object worship on Mary, but they just know her the mother of God. But okay, this could become complicated now. So it says consciously, or the words they use, they don't consider Mary as God or divine, but they call her mother of God. But what is the problem, or what is the criticism of Quran, is that the fact they do this worship or praying in front of her statue, whether they call her God or object of worship, uh, doesn't change anything. But then they notice this commentator must be Tafsir al-Minar, uh, Rashid Reza, because this is the one Allama Tabatabayan and they would look to a lot. Uh, then he says, a while ago in Beirut, in one of the magazines which belongs to Christians, wrote some interesting stuff, and that was the 50th anniversary of the announcement of Pope Pius IX regarding the character of Mary, and then they want to give examples of this is happening in nowadays. And in this example, this issue was explicitly stated that in the Eastern churches, like the Western churches, uh, they worship Mary, and uh, they're looking to the Christian sources, and something Pius the Ninth said. Pius the Ninth said that they really worship Mary, and then it adds in another article, it is written that some Christian guys said for the issue of worship of Mary. Uh, they find something in the Old Testament and Torah, some roots justifying it or referring to it. And that's the example of the hatred of the snake in the Garden of Eden. And Shaitan and the woman have Eve, which they interpreted as Maryam. Uh, Although this last sentence is not very clear, but the point is that this is the strategy to look and to see whether they themselves are talking about this. And they do. Actually, they're better examples. which actually this is a problem now. And something, what is Mary, and accusing the other side worshiping Mary, and committing mariolatry, like idolatry, worship of idols, worship of Mary actually is there. Protestants accuse Catholics the same way, with Wahhabis, when we go to graves, and they removed all the stones, sign of the graves, because they say going over there is a worship of uh, the graves. This debate is there. But the point is this: we think what the Wahhabi says is nonsense accusation and not fair. We don't anticipate Quran ascribes something like that level to the Christians, which technically is not fair. So it must be something more. We don't, when we go to the visit to shrine of Imam Reza, Imam Hussein, we're worshiping them, or at least we have to say we don't think like that, or we have to see some aspects of our behavior. And actually, this is the other thing of these verses. We have to somehow maybe put some check and balance for how we should approach, for example, uh, to the imams or so on. Actually, this would be a more interesting, challenging topic from a Shi'i view. But anyway, it adds, the commentator adds, بنابراین پرستش نبادت مریم در اینها وجود دارد. So they want to get examples in some sense, but not fully or maybe literal way, but in some sense we can say worship exists among them. And then we have Al-Mizan. But actually, I continue with Al-Mizan next lecture and other stuff. But I want to go back. I forgot to one part of that. Let me see. I can find it. Be sure I have it. Okay, because this is I want to show it to you. This is an interesting topic. I forgot from the last topic mentioned. Look, this issue of the Jesus and his relative. There is a book called Jude and Relatives of Jesus in the early church. This is the most. Jude is the other brother. We talk about James, talk about Simon, and then there's a Joseph as a brother, and Jude. There's a book in the Bible called Jude, really Jude. This is Richard Backham. Backham has done the research, and it's those kind of really scholastic, detailed research. So some of it cannot go say, and then there are different chapters are interesting results, but the one we were looking is this: the relatives of Jesus in the early church. The only I cannot say what there are many things here could be relevant. I cannot say one of the things it says, which I have, I think, 10 minutes to go through all is there are traces that from the writing of Paul and other stuff that look, many of these Christians, early Christian from Galilee, north of Palestine, but with Jesus they come to Jerusalem. And then when Jesus, for a while there when Jesus is martyred or crucified, whatever, they come back, stay in Jerusalem, because Jerusalem is really the heart of the religion, Judaism, and everybody coming, going. And the book of Acts explained that. But still, they go missionaries. And then, besides James, which maybe stayed mostly Jerusalem, other brothers and relatives of Jesus were involved in missionaries, other brothers. Yeah, that's they go invite people to the religion and I mean somehow rival or confronting Paul too. The same way, for example, the question we have is whether the Imam Hassan, Imam Hussein were involved in Futuhat, because at some stage they become youth. For example, Futuhat Iran, the answer some say yes, some no. Okay, that's another story. Here we can ask whether the family of Jesus, besides James, which is the head of the church and stays Jerusalem, whether they go to the missionaries. The answer is yes. And literal Paul kind of allude to them and justifies that, okay, they used to go with their wives, and then when they go to community responsible will give them food and shelter and accommodation and food. And then Paul demanded the same. He said, apostles and brothers of Lord or the family of Jesus had it, so I needed to have it too. So that's it. One other thing, this guy argue, it says, although Jerusalem is important, but it still seems there are two villages, which in Galilee. One is Nazareth, Nazareth or Nazareth, And another one, which in Farsi and Arabic become Kokab, star. Kokab star. Those two villages are maybe the center. Most of them maybe leave from there, and then they go from missionary and coming back. So they go to the Palestine, go to outside of it, they do missionary. Even there's one example, it seems one of the descendant of Jesus is in Tisfun, the capital of Sassanis. There is a record, it mentioned, that's a little bit, again, speculative, but it's possible one of the descendants is there. One of the bishop, the church, because it's important, it's not that far away in Iraq, they may end up over there. So this is the part, but the one which is, I think, the most crucial one is a list of the bishops in Jerusalem. Remember, I said there are 5 big cities at that time, and Rome wasn't that important. We have Jerusalem itself, then we have Rome uh, and at that time we don't have Constantinople, but later on comes, but we have Rome, Antioch, Alexandria, and maybe one more city later on, maybe Constantinople, but four of them. But they are not necessarily Bishop of Rome. It wasn't so much important than uh, Bishop of, definitely Jerusalem was the most important and so on. But so later on, Bishop of Rome become important, and because of Peter, Simon, the Peter we discussed. But Jerusalem, in the sense, was more important for the religion of Jews, for the Jewish Christians. Every Jews, even living outside Palestine, should go once for pilgrimage, going back to Jerusalem, and then many Hellenized Jews were there. We all said that. But the list of the bishops are reported uh, and in 2 lists, and again, it's the 2 guys we mentioned, Eusebius and Epiphanius, they're both 4th century, but the lists are independent. You see, there are some differences. That makes it like the Khabar Wahid. We said it's not Khabar Wahid Wahid. There are a little bit differences. But the 2 first names are, besides the uh, other things they said, the first 2 names, although these are Greek, but if you look, this is Jacobi, is Jacobi, I'm with Jacob, Jacobi, and then this is Simeon. This is Eon, Simeon. So that's Simon, Shamun. I mean, this guy Shamun. The Greek version, Simeon, Simon. So the 2 lists again matches that the first bishop of Rome is James, and the second one is Simeon the Clophas. So this is one other evidence he has gone through. These are very detailed to have to go argue for it. So I want to show how the work is done. But the one which is important is those chapters, Simeon, the son of Cleopas, which again he discusses a lot. Let me skip it. The one which is I think should cut our attention is this. Look, uh, Simeon the Clophas, go all the detail who's this Cleophas is, how the Simon is, what we know about him. Yeah, there is one sentence I wanted to read, page 90. Okay, let me read this one and then fast we do the other one. These are the sentences we know, because all I argued a basis of uh, I read this, but these are the 2 sentences. I read it, but let's read it more completely. We turn to the material specifically about Simeon and Simon the Clophas, the one I said I was claiming Malika is the descendant, the brother of Jesus or cousin of Jesus. His appointment as second bishop of Jerusalem, his succession to James was recorded by Hegesippus, so which we know is narrated by those other guys. In the opening of the first sequence of the material we have identified, this is preserved by Eusebius in 2 versions. And this is the oldest testimony we have left for us. Like, for example, the events attacking the house of the Hazrat Fatima, we want to find it in the books of Sunnis, and the oldest one we can find. After the martyr of James and the taking of Jerusalem, which immediately ensued. So this is by the Romans. Okay, so it is recorded that those apostles and disciples of the Lord who were still surviving met together from all quarters and together with the Lord's relative after the flesh. So again, Lord's relative after the flesh, based on the flesh. This issue, I'm the family of Jesus, I'm a spiritual family, I'm his true follower. Okay, maybe makes sense. But I am relative of Jesus by flesh, which we understand. The true follower of Imam Prophet is the one who really is not necessarily say it, but the one who followed their instructions. For the more part of them were still alive, so there were many good number of them still alive, to counsel all in common as to whom they should judge worthy to be the successor of James. And what is more, that they all with one consent approved Simeon the son of Cleopas, of whom also the book of Gospel makes mention. This part again makes it complicated. Yeah, it mentions, but who's which Cleophas it is relatively challenging, as worthy of the throne of community in that place. He was a cousin, so this guy assumes a cousin. So it is said of the Savior of Jesus, for indeed Hegesippus relate the Cleopas was Joseph's brother. And then there's another version, is simpler, shorter. And after James the Just had suffered martyrdom, as had also the Lord on the same account, the son of his, probably James, the son of his uncle. But this he's was probably referred to James, not Jesus here. The son of his, probably James' uncle, Simeon. So they assume James and is the son of Joseph the carpenter, but Simeon is the son of Cleophas, which is a brother of Joseph. Simeon, the son of Cleopas, was next appointed bishop, whom, since he was a cousin of the Lord, they all put forward as a second. Yeah, then this is possible. He's not a descendant of Mary. I was pushing it too much, but it's still, if you go one level lower, I cannot believe Malika Khatoon is descendant of the Simon the Peter, but this is possible. But this become cousin or stepbrother, not half brother of Jesus. Okay, this is done. But next, the one I want to end with 2 minutes, okay, is the issue of the caliphate. Look, this is the title this guy used. Is saying is are dealing with the Christian caliphate. All these successor of Jesus, like Imamate, mostly Imamate, are descendant of Jesus. So I would doing something like that. And then he doesn't know the Islamic one very well. Tabor and some other people know it well, but he somehow averred. Look, the observation that not only James, but also members of the family of Jesus were prominent in the leadership of the churches of Palestine down to at least the early second century for 100 years, prompted the Syrian scholar like Harnack and Schwabs to speak of Christian caliphate or of a dynastic form of Christianity, in which the highest authority of the church passed on from Jesus through dynastic succession of members of his family, much as the highest authority in early Islam passed on through the descendant of the family of the Prophet Muhammad. But then he goes to, and then the family, the word they use is desposionoi, and it's more like Sadat we have, or Quraysh, Sunnis had. Quraysh was different, but desposionio is kind of family of the Jesus, but the family relationship, they play an important role, but it's he was arguing whether it is or not. So it's not purely family relationship with Imam, and she is not like that. Not every descendant of Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein deserve. And it's not just because of relationship, it is because of virtue and quality. And then he's going to argue, he doesn't know the Shia argument very well, he doesn't aware of it, but he wants to say they receive apostleship, so it means they were companion of Jesus, Jesus give them mission. So the same way we say Imam Ali is cousin, but he's not the successor of Messi because he's a cousin, because he's the best first follower, the best knowledgeable, the best representative of Islam. So, but the whole idea of the Christian caliphate, but he says it's not that the family, he has to argue both ways. It's not that all the family relationship has no importance, but it's not that all is there. And then he lists seven arguments. So the title, the brother of Lord, like the broader term, bears witness to that some importance was attached to the family relationship. I will finish 1 minute. There is also evidence the brother of Jesus themselves were responsible for they downplay the relationship, explaining it. They don't want to people say because of they always say I'm servant of Jesus, I'm nothing but Jesus. The same imams would say regarding prophet, I think it's like that. I want to see the similarities. Interesting. This relativizing of family relation to Jesus may well have roots in gospel tradition. We must conclude there is unlikely to have been an explicit dynastic principle operating in favor of this personoid. Here I maybe agree, we don't have evidence, is a little different for Shia. But again, there also, is not that was clear cut. Everybody doesn't know exactly who's the next Imam is. We have many other lectures, I and sorry also discussed it. And certainly not one which they themselves devoted and maintained. And then the last argument, which I was very fast, finally, we should recall that tradition referred not only to particular individuals, but the family group as a whole. And the family group as a whole is important. We Quran have, uh, I want the reward only love of my Zul Ghurba, the family, Al Rasul, the Sadat. So this part of it is interesting. Maybe I should have opened it more, but the idea of the Christian caliphate and then similarity with the imamate is make the whole story interesting. So I said I should mention it. So I will stop here. Really, thank you for paying attention and for your time. Okay.